16th. This is the Energy and Environment Committee, and it is approximately 10 after 9 in the morning. I am Councilwoman Jan Perry, and why don't we take a moment and go through the agenda and see if there's any continuations or consent items.
Good morning, Madam Chair. Rafael Prada with the CLA's office. You have an 8-item agenda, 3 of which we'd like to place on a consent calendar.
Okay.
Items number 1, number 2, and number 4.
Number 1, 2, and 4.
There's no opposition to these items, fairly standard. Item number 1 relates to transfer of properties from
Okay.
GSD to Water and Power.
All right. We can do that. Well, there's no quorum,
We
so
can- Okay,
make that as a recommendation at this point.
okay.
Okay. Okay. All right. Then that puts us to item 3.
Item number 3, CAO report relative to the issuance of the $350 million wastewater system fixed-rate revenue bonds. We have staff from CAO.
Good morning, Sarai Bago with the CAO's office. The CAO report before you requests authority to issue up to $350 million in fixed-rate bonds to refund outstanding wastewater commercial paper. This includes $160 million in commercial paper that was issued as part of a variable rate refunding earlier this year. We're also requesting authority for up to an additional $750 million to refund all or some portion of other bonds that will be eligible for refunding early next year. We will return to council for approval of those documents as needed.
In a few days? Just a few, you said you'll return to council when?
For approval of those documents for the additional bonds as needed in the future.
Oh, as needed. Okay. And then just give me an example, just for the record, of a typical capital improvement this funding will be used to implement or support.
Well, it's to support the sewer capital program. So I guess I can have the department come up and give more detail about the capital program.
Lisa Maury, Bureau of Sanitation. This could be used for a wide variety of projects, our sewer rehabilitations, relief sewers, and projects at our wastewater treatment plants.
Okay, thank you. Well, again, we don't have a quorum, so I'll just make that as a recommendation at this point. And when we get a quorum, we'll go back and ratify it. Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
That takes us to item
5. Item number 5, TWP report relative to the issuance of maximum up to $1 billion of power system revenue, refunding revenue bonds.
Good morning, Councilwoman. My name is Mario Ignacio, Director of Finance and Risk Control at DWP. Item 5 is the requested refunding authority for the power system. The refunding authority we're asking will replace and not increase any additional debt to both systems. At this time, we're asking $1 billion worth of refunding authority from City Council. The board has approved this item on October 21.
So with this authority, if granted, you're generating savings in a sense, and then where do the savings get put back into your budget?
The savings will go back to the Power Revenue Fund. We will be paying less debt service for the bonds that we are
So
replacing.
you're buying down your debt.
Yes. Well, we are refinancing the debt. We're reducing the interest
Okay,
cost.
so you're basically redefining the terms of your debt.
Yes.
Okay. And what's the total amount of the refunding?
Right now, we are intending to refund $125 million of the power systems auction rate securities because there is no longer a market for it. It is due for refinancing on February 2009.
And then how much do you think you'll save the Power System Revenue Fund by redefining the terms?
Our refunding candidates are reviewed, and they should have at least 3% present value savings before they could be refunded.
So given the conditions of the existing market, what do you expect in terms of projections to save over the life of the loan, or what are your goals in terms of a percentage? Is 3% with
3% is the minimum.
What is the range that you're trying to achieve? 3% to a savings of, you're lowering your interest rate.
Well, the savings is 3%. Right now, the portfolio of DWP's debt, it pays about anywhere from 4.5 to 5%. So we can reduce that by 3%.
Okay. What's total debt issuance cost?
Total debt issuance cost normally ranges anywhere from 0.25% to 1% of the total par being refunded. Historically, DWP has been very lucky to spend only about 0.25 to 0.5%.
Okay, so that's within range of what the market will
Yes.
has to offer?
Yes, that's
Okay.
correct.
All right, I don't have any further questions. We'll do that as a recommendation at this point. That's number 6.
Madam Chair, number 6 is very similar. It's a similar issuance of maximum up to $500 million of water system refunding revenue bonds. We also have staff from Water and Power for that.
Why don't you just tell us how much you anticipate on the saving the water system revenue fund through this transaction?
There are currently no refunding candidates for the water system. We're asking for the initial refunding authority as a proactive tool. We normally would come back to the board when we have identified refunding candidates in the future. And similar to the power system, the debt management policy of the department requires us to have at least a 3% net present value savings to engage in a transaction.
Okay, and again, given current market conditions, what do you expect you'll be able to save over the life of the loan, given the market as it is now? What are your projections?
Right now, there are no refunding candidates, but when interest rates go further down, we may be able to get 3%.
Okay, and how far down do you expect them to have to go? Within what time frame before you expect to see candidates begin to bubble up?
I would say about 0.75 basis points down on the tax-exempt market. Right now, there's a dislocation in the market, and tax-exempt rates have been high. So I would say anywhere from 0.75 to 1%.
All right, again, that'll be recommendation for number 6. Thank you. And Ms. Yancey, I know I've got a public comment here that will be of interest, so if you can make sure you stay for the public comment, because this is an individual who's going to need some follow-up. Okay, number 7.
Madam Chair, number 7, would you like to also consider jointly with number 8? These are both very similar contracts.
Fine.
These contracts were initially rejected by the council back in August.
They
And-
have the ethics package attached to them now?
Good morning, Ali Morabi from Water and Power. Yes, we went through the entire process and the packages are attached.
Mr. CLA, we have a recommendation that this matter go to council without recommendation, and ask that the DWP, with the assistance of the City Attorney and Ethics Commission, address the viability of its ethics procedures as it relates to the proposed contract. Am I correct?
Yes, if the committee's wish to do so. If the committee feels that the information is provided to it last month with regard to the ethics policy is sufficient to address its concerns, then it should forward the 2 contracts to council with recommendation to approve. If not, then the matter should be discussed in council with the assistance of the City Attorney's Office and Ethics Commission. It just really depends on your committee's
Okay.
comfort level.
Given the issues raised before, when you presented your new ethics reform package and the report was ultimately noted and filed, can you just go to the issue of how future conflict of interest issues will be mitigated? And also, again, for the record, I want you to say the extent of involvement, the Ethics Commission, the City Attorney, in setting up this new framework under which you need to operate. And have they both departments signed off on the viability of your latest ethics reforms?
Sure.
Hi, Lonnie Eldridge, DWP City Attorney. Yes, we have the same ethics reform underway that we brought to your committee here, and it's a very active program. We passed these contracts through that program, and all the new contracts at the board come through the program, and it seems to be working okay. It's a large organization, so we're going through the organization, making sure that all the different divisions, all the different locations, including up in Bishop, follow the same procedure. So that's where we are, but it is underway. And the Ethics Commission has been kept in the loop as far as knowing how it's going and suggesting any changes and so forth. So that's where we are.
Okay, and you're the city attorney?
City Attorney's Office.
Okay, and what about the Ethics Commission? Are they here?
I don't believe, I don't know. I don't think they're here.
Okay, well, just for the record, when it comes to council,
Yes.
I want somebody from the Ethics Commission
Okay.
there to be able to testify on the record that they, too, separate and apart from the city attorney, have repeated procedures and think that they've had a thorough vetting. Just something specific about this contract. The proposed 5-year contract with Convergent was for a total of $3.5 million. Of course, the previous 5-year contract with Convergent was for $56 million, and even though a similar amount of substations will be installed, and it's basically 56 versus 63, why is there such a dramatic difference in the amount of the contract?
What basically happened with the original contract, we purchased all the hardware and software for all 120 stations, and to date we have installed 56. We now own all the hardware and software, and we only need some services to install the other basically 57 stations remaining on our own. So that's the big difference, is the money that we don't have to pay anymore for hardware and software.
So you did the hard costs up front?
Yes.
Got it. Okay, thank you. All right, so again, let's make sure we have ethics at the full council meeting. And,
That'll be tomorrow, Madam Chair. as
Okay.
well, Just so you know.
and if you'll be there too, that would be good.
Yes,
Thank
I
you.
will be.
All right, so we'll move that forward with recommendation.
I'm sorry, Madam Chair, the recommendation is to,
Move it forward.
okay.
Yeah. Yeah, approve it. Well, I don't have quorums, I can't really approve it.
Just,
You can approve it as a communication from
Okay,
the chair.
okay, approve it as a communication.
okay.
And that takes us to the public comment. Now, this is for Mr. Larry Matsui. The reason I asked Ms. Yancey to stay is because I know that about a year ago, maybe less than a year ago, maybe more like 6 ago, I had contacted DWP and had asked about Mr. Matsui, you can come on up, asked about this issue and had given, I believe, Mr. Matsui someone to call up there. I can't recall, but I made an inquiry about this issue, never got a response, and so I have encouraged him to come today and speak on public comment regarding a topic that is near and dear to his business.
Good morning, Chairwoman Perry. I'm
Say
here-
your name for the record.
Yeah, my name is Larry Matsui. I'm here before you this morning to share with you my experience in participating in an RFP that was issued by the Department of Water and Power. The purpose of this RFP is to award a 15-year lease to operate, maintain, and improve the Crawley Lake Recreational Facility located near Mammoth Lakes, California. It has almost been 2.5 years since this process began, and it has not been concluded. The facts that I'm about to present this morning are the basis for my contention that this RFP process was biased and predetermined before it was ever released. Councilmember Perry, in the interest of time, maybe I'll just go to a couple of
Yeah,
the issues.
You're the only one, so.
Okay. This RFP was released in July 2006 with a proposal submittal date of October 6th. A pre-proposal conference was held at the lake on August 29th, 2006, open to anyone interested in submitting a proposal. 3 interested parties attended this conference, 2 who ultimately submitted proposals, me and the current lessee. Of noteworthy was a conversation that took place at this conference between the current lessee and Clarence Martin of the Bishop Office of the Department of Water and Power, wherein Clarence Martin told the current lessee, and I quote, "We tried to avoid this, but we have to go through this process." Now that statement by itself is not overly troublesome, but when taken with the other facts that I will shortly mention, it further supports my belief of the bias and predetermination of this RFP. By the way, the Bishop Office of DWP did try and award the lease to Crawley Lake Fish Camp, the current lessee, but when the request came down here to Los Angeles, they were informed that an RFP needed to be issued. Between August 29th in 2006 and September 7, 2006, the RFP allowed for interested parties to submit written questions. During this period, the current lessee requested that one of the requirements of the RFP be eliminated. This requirement involves proof of insurability. Why would someone not want to provide proof of insurability? Is it because they couldn't comply? My answer is yes, they could not. What is of special significance here is that in order for the current lessee to comply with this requirement, given that they were the current operator, all they had to do was submit a certificate of insurance. To obtain a certificate of insurance, all one has to do is pick up the telephone and make the request. It's that simple. I have experience in dealing with insurance and risk management, so I know this to be the case. I, on the other hand, had to obtain insurance quotes and binders evidencing my ability to provide the required insurance, which I did and included in my proposal package. The inability of the current lessee to provide this simple evidence of insurability raises a number of questions. If they were not carrying the required insurance, they would have been in default under their lease, and liability exposure would fall more directly on the City of Los Angeles and its taxpayers. By not being able to meet the requirement of the proof of insurability, their proposal would have been deemed non-responsive and eliminated from further consideration. And finally, why did LADWP comply with their request? The RFP proposal criteria and requirements were pre-established, and what is the justification for eliminating such a requirement? In responding to one of my appeal letters, a written response was provided by the Department of Water and Power in a letter dated June 13, 2007 from Mr. Albert Stevens, Director of Supply Chain Management. In his letter, Mr. Stevens states as justification for the removal of the proof of insurability, quote, that it could be difficult for potential proposers to comply with the requirement prior to being awarded a lease, and that the incumbent operator, which currently has insurance on file with LADWP, would have no difficulty in complying with the requirement to provide a certificate of insurance. Further, since compliance with mandated insurance coverages would be verified during the lease negotiation process, there were no financial or liability risks to LADWP in eliminating the requirement as part of the RFP process. He goes on to say that potential proposers were notified of this change on September 27, 2006, prior to the October 6, 2006 close of the RFP response period. No questions or protests regarding the change were received until receipt of my protest on May 30, 2007. The implication here is that why didn't I raise objection to the elimination of the insurance requirement before? In response to Mr. Stevens' reference to no question or protest regarding the change were received, the RFP did not provide an opportunity to file protests during the RFP period. As to having insurance on file, one has to ask how current that information is. In my judgment, the question still is why go through this whole exercise if all the incumbent had to do to comply is submit a certificate of insurance along with their proposal? And why would LADWP agree to eliminate this requirement from the RFP? I find Mr. Stevens' letter to fall short of providing a qualitative justification for the actions taken by LADWP. Upon the public notification of the award of the lease, the only document I was provided to review in order to determine whether or not I felt an appeal was merited was the scoring matrix. A review of the scoring matrix raises a few significant questions. The qualifications experience category included experience in capital improvements, operation, and maintenance of a recreational facility, and also financial stability. My partners, Jeffrey and Josephine Conaway, who unfortunately couldn't be here this morning due to the inclement weather, managed the lake for the incumbent between August 2000 and December 2003. The only major improvements made at the lake were done during the time the Conaways managed the lake, and was done so under their direction. These improvements included the rebuilding of the major storage facility that was destroyed by fire and major damage to the dock system caused by a severe windstorm, both occurring during the same off-season. A new storage building was erected and new docks were installed prior to the opening of the following season, much to the surprise of the owner of Crawley Lake Fish Camp and representatives of the Bishop office of the LADWP, who thought it would be impossible to accomplish by the opening of the next season. My partners got it done. With regard to financial stability, I provided a letter from a surety company evidencing my ability to post a bond in the low to mid seven-figure range, which I believe the incumbent did not do. So given all of this, how could the incumbent score the maximum 20 points and we scored only 14? The next category had to do with proposed modifications to the lease terms. The RFP required any proposer to include in their proposal any and all comments to the lease form attached to the RFP. At the June 5th Contract Committee meeting, it was discussed that the lease attached to the RFP was incomplete and that changes to the standard lease form will be incorporated in the lease during lease negotiations with Crowley Lake Fish Camp. Additionally, it was also stated that the rent would be further negotiated. With a lease that was incomplete and a rental payment that would undergo further negotiations, how could this be a fair basis to assign an evaluation score? Lastly, compliance with the RFP contracting requirements was a category with a pass-fail grade. If the insurance requirement was not deleted, it is my contention that the Crowley Lake Fish Camp would have failed in this category and their proposal would be deemed non-compliant and eliminated from consideration. At the June 19, 2007 Contracts Committee meeting, LADWP staff requested that the committee approve the awarding of the lease to Crowley Lake Fish Camp. I spoke at that meeting, setting forth the arguments that I presented here this morning. The chairman of that committee, David Nahai, denied staff's request. He gave staff two options: to receive and file the request or to terminate the RFP. Staff chose to receive and file, and Mr. Nahai told staff that when they come back to this committee for approval, they need to have better answers to my issues than they have provided so far. Commissioner Patsaoris was also present at that meeting, and later on that day at the board meeting, he asked the city attorney to get back to him as to whether staff had the authority to change requirements of an RFP, which I don't know what the answer is to Mr. Patsaoris' request. Since that meeting, as we all know, Mr. Nahai has become the general manager of the LADWP. In early 2008, I requested a meeting with Mr. Nahai, which was subsequently held on April 28, 2008. Attending that meeting were Mr. Craig Luna, Director of Real Estate, Mary Dennis, Deputy City Attorney, and an Assistant General Manager. In that meeting, the department informed me that they are proceeding with awarding the lease to Crowley Lake Fish Camp and will be submitting their request to the city CAO within days. They informed me that upon receiving the approval from the CAO, I will be given the opportunity to review documents and file a protest if I deem to do so. I responded by saying that I was surprised and disappointed to hear that the department is moving forward and that I will most certainly file a protest. Mary Dennis told me that she would let me know when the request for approval is sent over to the CAO's office. Approximately 2 weeks went by and I had not heard from Ms. Dennis, so I sent her an email asking about the status. She informed me that the request had not been sent to the CAO because the request had to be re-signed. That was the last time I had any communication with LADWP almost 8 months ago. I would like to request from this committee, if empowered to do so, to request the LADWP to come before this committee and explain their position on the issues that I've raised and to provide a status of this RFP.
Well, I'd like to make that an item for our, when is our next meeting?
January 20th, I believe.
We will have them on the agenda, make this an item on the next agenda to give the department time to prepare and gather their information. And if you can introduce yourself to Ms. Yancey there, so that you get into greater detail in terms of they can gather the information from the department and be prepared to respond as an agenda item.
Okay, thank you very much.
All right, that, there are no other public comment cards pending.
No.
So this was the portion of the meeting where those things that were not on the agenda, people are able to come up and speak about. So seeing that no one else is coming forward, the meeting is adjourned. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.